Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's roundtable discussion from DYOPATH on a really interesting topic we have around Log4j vulnerability. Before we get started, just for a quick reminder, everybody's on mute and your video is off. But if you have a question, please refer to the chat feature. This is being recorded, and you'll be able to view this on demand right on our YouTube channel. To get started, I'd like to introduce our couple of panelists. We have Matt Briggs, our Director of New Business Development, joined by Shohn Trojacek, our Security Practice Lead. So with that, Matt, I'll hand it off to you guys to get into it.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about how threat actors are exploiting the vulnerability. One of the things that jumped out at me is, I think we've all heard of ransomware as a service organizations, right, providing the playbook to threat actors, the highest bidder, so to speak. But certainly they've been prevalent. We talked about botnets and Trojans and DOS. I mean, there are other things that you're hearing and seeing, as far as exploits so far.
Yeah, I think that things that you listed are pretty much par for the course. So most of this is about just getting that launch pad or that point from which someone can stage additional attacks. And so whatever form those take upon, it can range from ransomware to whatever else you can imagine. So
Yeah,
it could be
and then
walking out information.
Yeah, thanks. And then I know, what's particularly troubling is, Shohn had mentioned the security score 10 out of 10. It's easy to exploit. Log4j is used everywhere. According to Cyber Reason, it's estimated that a third of all web servers in the world, could be vulnerable. So we're talking the largest e-commerce sites, social media platforms, technology companies, even gaming platforms. I'm not going to name names, but they all leverage Log4j in some form or fashion, which makes this again particularly concerning. And then, according to Checkpoint, through Friday of last week, so December 17th, 2021, there was already close to 4 million known hacking attempts, some of which have obviously been successful. So anything else to add, on that front, Shohn?
Yeah, I think the main thing is, again, I'm gonna swing back around to that inventory.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's one of the first steps, is you really have to dive in and get a handle on what that inventory is. And then from there, you can start looking at what the vendors are publishing and start taking care of this. I would say that fortunately, if your infrastructure does not have a whole lot of web services and things of that nature exposed, then you may be a little bit off the hook. But that's still, you still need to go take some time and look at your internal infrastructure and so forth, because this could open doors for whatever bad actors could be hiding out there anyway.
Yeah, and then I know we've talked, so thanks for that. We've talked a little bit about how this compares to other security incidents that have made the headlines. For example, SolarWinds supply chain. In your opinion, as our cybersecurity guru, how does this stack up against other things that you've seen in the past?
I think there's some good news on this one, in that for the most part, people know about it. They don't, always know what to do, but they, the actions are starting to happen from my point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Compare this to the SolarWinds attack. That was more of a sort of a faith and that things were being taken care of, and they weren't. And so that false sense of security is what really got everyone on that one. Whereas this one, it's it's embedded. We know that as a community, we know that we need to deal with it and move forward and so forth. So there's not as much of that surprise factor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of, folks. So there is a heightened level of, we'll just say, consciousness around it, but they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it's not necessarily a bad thing that, everyone's on their toes. I will say that if you take something like SolarWinds, it was, I'd say, surgical, and it impacted far less organizations, right? So MSPs that were using SolarWinds, those organizations that were piggybacking on the use of SolarWinds and their MSP partners. Again, this one is, a much bigger deal because of, again, the prevalence piece that we talked about. So, all right, well, what, for those of the folks that are, listening in on this, what can organizations do to protect themselves right now?
So the first step that I think of always returns to inventory. And particularly what I would do is focus on your perimeter. If you have Apache web servers and things of that sort, that's where I would really kind of focus my efforts. Dive in on those, make sure that those are good in the sense that the Log4j module has either been disabled or has been patched as appropriate. So that's what the very first step I would take. In the event that you are not sure about a given vendor, then there are a wealth of sites that are out there now that are publishing information on which vendors are vulnerable. You can go to github.com, for example. There's quite a bit of information that's out there. So go out, find out which tools, which vendors you're using, and the degree of susceptibility that they're going to have, and start getting those patches rolled out. The other thing I would say is I'm a big believer in looking for things leaving your network. So it's one thing to patch, and it's another thing to say, we've got some device that's hanging out underneath someone's desk or something that we never even knew existed and has this bug. And so you want to try to catch things like that, where it's just stuff you just don't know about, the unknowns, right? So with those, if you can monitor for traffic leaving your network, in particular LDAP, that would be super helpful. And I would say even taking this as an opportunity to better tighten down egress traffic, just to make sure that the stuff that's leaving your network is as it should be. I think there's a lot of organizations that just leave themselves exposed on that topic alone, never mind Log4j.
Yeah.
In terms of more in depth, what you could do for organizations that do have, say, Java code bases and things of that sort, what you would do is start to look at your code underneath the covers and start to dive in and disable this module where possible, or redirect its usage, if you will. So that way it's not as big of a problem in the future.
Thanks, Shohn. So I think to summarize, patch where possible, right? And I think version 2.14, anything above that, right? I think we're at 2.17 at the moment. And so perform, as you had mentioned, attentive monitoring, especially, that egress traffic, because, the whole command and control function, shore up the perimeter, have firewalls performing, automatic updates. And then, I guess I'll plug one of our partners, Cybereason. I know that they've released a free quote unquote vaccine to thwart hackers. So, if you're interested in learning more about that, you can certainly contact your DYOPATH account manager. So any parting words, Shohn, before we adjourn?
These would be my parting words. With each of these types of things that happen, they're always an opportunity. And so this one is an opportunity to kind of shore things up from a larger, more programmatic standpoint. So if I were you all, I would take this opportunity and do the most you can with it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Bethany. Short and sweet on this one.
This is great. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Shohn. Thanks for dropping some knowledge on us all around this topic. Well, everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to solutions@dyopath.com or your account manager, and we'll be happy to continue this conversation with you. So thanks again, guys, and thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.